Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my latest David Fincher movie review. This is for Fight Club, a film that was released in 1999. I didn't see it until I think it was 2001 when it was on DVD. I will say up front, at one point, this was my favourite movie of all time. It held that spot for a little while, but does it hold up though? For those who haven't seen Fight Club, it follows this character that we know only really as the narrator. His true name is never quite revealed to us. He's played by Edward Norton, and he's an insomniac. He cannot sleep, and he starts going to these help groups, like cancer support, things like that, because basically it allows him to make connections with people. And even though he isn't really going through what they're going through, being with them, seeing them cry, it allows him to cry, and it allows him to get that release and connect and have some humanity with other people. And as a result of that, he's then able to sleep at night. But a woman called Marla Singer, played by Helena Bonham Carter, comes into the fray, and she's essentially doing exactly what he's doing. And once he cottons onto this fact, she almost becomes like a mirror to his lies. So with her being there in the groups, it doesn't quite have the same effect for him. So he goes back to being an insomniac. And during this insomnia, he meets a character called Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, who is this very charismatic guy who basically allows the narrator to jettison the things that are in his life that are of no use to him, and kind of gives his life new purpose, new meaning, new direction. The film from there enters this chaotic world of fight clubs set up by Tyler and the narrator, as they kind of connect. Again, it's about connection. The film shows us these different ways in which human beings can connect with one another, and pummeling each other's brains out is one of those ways. These are two men who are living in a generation of men that have no direction, that are told that life is about furnishing your home with the latest IKEA catalogue products and materialism, consumerism, that kind of thing. And the whole film plays really as an attack on consumerism and the way we live modern life. Getting together and pummeling each other's brains out it's almost like a way of waking each other up, of feeling something tangible, something that's real. Even though it's pain, it's something that is genuine, it's something that is real. It creates this movement of men who obviously are disenfranchised and kind of disenchanted with the modern world, and goes down some dark places as Tyler, we learn, has a master plan to kind of send humanity into the dark ages, or at least the American part of humanity, by wiping out all the credit information of the US. Very, like I say, chaotic film, kind of all over the place, deals with a lot of ideas, it must be said. But again, like I say, what it's really about is human connection, that desire to connect with each other, and the fact that we are living in a world currently that is almost built to stop us from doing that. When we see the narrator in the life that most people have, he works a 9 to 5, he's in an office job, he's got a really nice apartment because he's making the money, he's furnishing it with everything that we're told you need, but he's soulless, he's got no soul, he's losing himself, and he can't sleep as a result of that. It's only when he finds that connection with other people, even though it's in pain, that he's able to sleep. And I think that's one of the things that the film has to say, is that actually we avoid pain in life, but actually pain is a part of life. It's a part of what makes us human, and it's only once you've gone through pain and experienced it and shared it with others. That you build community, that you start living. You can only really experience the joys of life and know what the joys of life are because you've experienced the pain as well. Pain, quite frankly, is a part of life, and I think that's, again, one of the things that the film is saying. Now, the performances in the film are all really great, must be said. I don't think Edward Norton's ever been better. He's hilarious in this at times. The scene where he beats himself up in order to get his boss into trouble, to blackmail his boss, is just hilarious and kind of comes out of nowhere. And you genuinely believe that Norton is beating himself up here. The way that it's filmed, the way that he physically kind of maneuvers himself in that scene, it feels like... What it feels like, to be honest, it feels like somebody has actually been picking him up and beating him up and throwing him around, but they've worn like a green screen outfit and then taken them out afterwards. And it's just like, I don't know if that's the case, but that's what it feels like, just because of the physicality and the way that Norton's throwing himself around. It's really cool. It's a great performance, like I say, both physically and just comically. He injects a lot of humour into it. The film itself is quite dark, both in cinematography and tone. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. There's a lot in here that is really pushing the boundary of good taste, it must be said. The moment you get into cancer support groups and this guy's kind of showing up to for different purposes, then you're probably not sitting on the best side of good taste. But if you can get over that hurdle and look at what the film is trying to say with this stuff, then I think you will be able to push past that and realise what it's actually trying to say. I think one of the scares when this film came out as well was that there was a fear that a lot of what Tyler Durden is about, his outlook on life, his agenda, his mission statement, so to speak. I think there was some fear that a lot of people would take that on board and really run with it. And I think anyone who does that is kind of missing the point, big time. Because I'll get into spoilers now. I kind of have to in order to explain myself, really. So if you've not seen the film, if you don't know the ending, then go away and watch it and then come back. But from here on out, spoilers. So we learn at the end of this film, before I get to that, there's a scene in the film when Tyler is kind of teaching the narrator to push through the pain, and he gives him this burn on his hand, and he won't let him have the thing that will stop the burning sensation until he pushes through it, until he holds his hand out and doesn't kind of cry for the antidote, so to speak, but just rather stays with the pain, stays in that moment. And in that moment, he gives this little speech where he basically he's talking about their generation and how you have to live with the possibility that perhaps God doesn't like you. And that's I feel like that's an outlook that I feel like a lot of people have. They're trapped in this cycle in their life of kind of self-destruction because they can't believe in themselves. And because they don't believe in themselves, they can't believe that God would love them. And I feel like that is one of the kind of spark plugs, so to speak, that leads Tyler Durden's train of thought down the destructive path that it does. But obviously when we get to the end of the film and we find out about the twist, which is that actually Tyler Durden is the narrator is Tyler Durden. This is a split personality that the narrator has kind of created to help him navigate through the world, to help him deal with the world. But ultimately, and I feel like this is the thing that never gets mentioned, this is the thing that I never seem to hear anyone talk about this particular aspect, is that ultimately the narrator has to reject Tyler. Okay, that's essentially what the film towards the end becomes about. It's so Tyler in some sense frees the narrator up to acknowledge certain things in his life, that yes, life isn't about buying stuff, it isn't about becoming a consumer, it's not about how nice your apartment looks. But on the flip side of that, what is the alternative? And the alternative that Tyler presents actually isn't the alternative that is acceptable either. It's something that ultimately the narrator has to reject. Okay, going down the path of self-destruction, going down the path of anarchy isn't the answer to the problem that he's faced with at the beginning of the film. So, like I say, while Tyler speaks some truth, he isn't truth. And I don't think that if you're taking this film the way you should be taking it, I don't think you should be looking at Tyler as a kind of call to arms and the type of character that should lead the charge for men out of the current way we're living, the problems of this particular generation. He presents some truths about that problem, but he isn't ultimately the answer. The answer is to say that, well, okay, consumerism ain't working for us, but chaos and destruction ain't the answer either. So that's really what the film is saying, to me at any rate. You may have a different outlook on it, but the way I see it, the narrator has to come to terms with who Tyler is, which is ultimately that he's a part of himself, but that he has to reject him. He has to reject what he stands for in the end. And the film really is a love story as well. It's about a lot of what Tyler is about kind of gets in the way of the narrator making that connection with Marla Singer, with Helena Bonham Carter's character. She's great in this film as well. I don't think I've ever liked her as much as she is in this film. She's a very dark character, very twisted, it must be said. But a lot of that, you realise once you get to the end of the film, isn't quite as dark and isn't quite as twisted as you think, because there's this balancing act going on where actually she thinks she's dealing with this same guy throughout the whole film. She thinks the narrator is Tyler Durden, and obviously he doesn't realise that when he becomes Tyler, he's off kind of having sex with Marla, and then when he's not Tyler, he's jealous of Tyler for being with her, and he can't quite accept that. He doesn't realise that. He doesn't realise that actually he's in love with this woman. Because of all of his issues, because of all of his hang-ups, it's something he can't quite bring himself to accept, that he's in love with her. And a part of that, again, is because of her doing the thing that he's doing at the beginning, going to these support groups, even though they're not really suffering with the conditions that the people in these support groups suffer from. It holds this mirror up to himself. It kind of presents him with his own lies. So she, in effect, is showing him himself, and he can't deal with that. He can't accept that at this point in his life. So because of that, he can't bring himself to accept his love for her. So I love all that element. I love that once he gets to the end of the film and realises who Tyler is, who he is, and what he needs to reject, what he needs to accept, he embraces her. And you sense there's a future there for the two of them, and that he's gotten through this tough time in his life, kind of thing. It's a great film. A lot of really great character dynamics. Like I say, a lot of really great themes that it explores and does so really well. And one of the things that hit me this time around is just how signposted that ending is. Once you know that ending, and you watch the film is telling you constantly that Tyler is not real, that the narrator is Tyler. Right from the opening shot. The opening shot is within the narrator's brain. So we have this shot kind of zooming through the inner workings of a brain. It comes out of the brain, through the head, a bead of sweat falls down, it comes out through the head and to the barrel of a gun, end of a gun that's kind of pointed at the head, that is being held by Tyler Durden. That's the opening shot. So what it's telling you right there is that everything that is going on outside is really a result of what's going on inside. This is all in his head. The film states it right up front, visually, and then it proceeds to do so throughout the rest of the film. And it's so cleverly done because it's that thing where when you watch it the first time around, you can read it so subtly in a different way. Like the stuff with Marla, the way she reacts to him and he reacts to her. First time you watch it, it just plays as jealousy. It plays that, yeah, he's jealous of Tyler and she's a bit quirky. She's a bit, you know, just kind of mood swings, changes of mood at any given moment, and you just accept that. You don't think about it. At least I didn't first time I watched it. And then again, like I say, once you know that twist and you watch it through again, it's just signposted, and it's so cleverly done. I will say that my sensibilities, you know, as an older guy, you know, I was like 19 when this film came out, 21 when I actually watched it. My sensibilities have changed somewhat. I prefer something a bit lighter these days. I find that the atmosphere of this film is quite oppressive. Like I say, it's not for everyone. I didn't enjoy it as much this time as I used to when it was, you know, when I held it up as my favourite film. I think it was definitely, as a younger man, it's one of those films that kind of grabs you by the throat, and it's a bit of, it speaks to you because of where you're at in your life. You have no direction and this, that and the other, very much like the character in the film. But now, you know, being a married man with kids, I feel like these days I do have a sense of purpose. I think as a result, the film maybe doesn't speak to me as much as it once did, and the atmosphere of it feels a lot more oppressive than it once did, whereas previously it felt a bit more liberating. Like I see the narrator sharing this rundown, abandoned flat, apartment that Tyler clearly doesn't own, but has just decided to kind of squat in. And the narrator kind of goes and shares his apartment with him. Shares it with him. Yeah, it's just dank. It's dark. It looks mouldy. It looks rotten. It's got a massive puddle of water in the basement. It's like, yeah, it's disgusting. And as much as, you know, I agree with the notion that consumerism isn't the best thing to pursue in life, it's actually nothing to pursue in life, I can't help but think that actually I would rather go back to the flat that he had at the beginning that was destroyed. Yeah, down with consumerism, but let me have my home comforts, you know. So it is definitely a much more oppressive kind of vibe to the film than I remember it having. So yeah, in that regard, it's not quite as enjoyable. But again, it still packs a lot of punch. It's still got a lot of meat on its bones. It still has a lot to say, and it's still got some really well drawn out characters that don't lose their sense of self once you get that twist ending. You know, it's not one of those films that kind of hinges on the twist where once you know the twist there isn't as much depth there. No, you know that twist and the film has just as much depth, if not more so, to be honest, because once you go through the film and you start watching the narrator, what he's doing, watching what Tyler's doing, and seeing just what the psychology is there at work, how when the narrator can't deal with certain things, he has to get Tyler to do it and all that. It speaks volumes about the character and where he's at in his life. So yeah, great film, full of depth, full of meaning, full of brilliant characters. I love it. 5 out of 5 from me. Yeah, but what about you? Have you seen Fight Club, or is it one of those films that to this day for some reason has escaped your attention? Please do leave your comments down below about the film. Let me know your thoughts on it. Give me your interpretation of the film, what you think it means to you. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, crack in.